Drawing hands is way easier than you think, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do it, no matter your skill level. Hello wonderful people, it's Genevieve, and my goal here on this channel is to teach you all about illustration and design. So if you're new, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the weekly videos and so that you can join our wonderful creative community. And with that said, grab your drawing tools and let's get started. So in this video, I'm going to be drawing on my iPad, but you can follow along using the exact same technique no matter which tools you are using to draw. And right off the gate, I'm going to give you probably the best advice I can give you to draw hands, which is know that they can smell fear. Whenever you're drawing hands and you're starting with the mindset of, oh, this is going to be hard, I can't do it, you're probably going to be right and you're probably going to struggle a lot. But if you go in with the mindset of hands are just shapes like everything else, trust me, you're going to be able to do it. And there are multiple ways you can draw hands. Here I'm just showing you my technique, which I call the pillow technique, and you're going to see why when we move on to the 3D. But first, let's look at a super basic and flat hand just to observe the structure and break it down in multiple very simple shapes that is going to make everything way easier to draw down the line. One of the first key shapes is the palm, which you can just draw as a square. Now, one really cool thing about the hand is that the fingers are usually pretty much the height of the palm, so you can just go ahead, take your palm square and put it on top, and just like that you're gonna get a basic guide for your fingers. You can then go in and draw a plus sign that divides your square in 4 roughly equal parts. You can then split your top sections like this, so in 2 halves, and these are going to become the guides for the fingers. So it's easy to start with the middle finger because it is the longest one and it's the one that is going to touch the top of the box. The length of the other finger is going to vary quite a lot, but the index is usually just slightly shorter than the middle finger, and then the ring finger is either the same height as the index or a little bit shorter. And this is starting to be a lot of information, but don't worry, I've included a cheat sheet with all the proportions that you can use, so that will be linked in the description below. So don't worry about memorizing everything. And at this point, it's helpful to split the fingers into 3 little sections with the 3 joints, because the pinky is usually the same height as the 2 first sections of the middle finger. So if that did not make a whole lot of sense, make sure to look at the video and it's probably going to be way clearer. Otherwise, you can always look at the cheat sheet. And the thumb is really simple. So the first section is actually already drawn. It is the lower quadrant of our square, like this. And then you just have 2 more sections, so slightly rounded rectangles. You could also go with ovals to create the rest of the thumb. And before we move on to cleaning the hand, because right now it's a mess of lines, you might want to add the wrist. And for the wrist, you can simply draw a triangle like this. And this is what you would connect to the rest of the arm, as opposed to just going straight in from the arm to the square of the palm. And before we look at how to draw a 3D hand, so not this flat little thing, let's just quickly clean up the lines so you can have a better idea of what happens after you've drawn, the basic shape. So simply by outlining these shapes that you've created, so all the squares, all the ovals, things that everyone knows how to draw, you can see that you automatically get a hand. Again, this one is really flat, it doesn't look that great, but it's going to be the same technique for 3D, and that's what we're going to look at right now. So now that we've looked at the basic structure of a hand and how to break it down in pieces and shapes, it is going to be way easier to draw in 3D. I do recommend though that you take all the time you need to get really familiar with the different proportions. So by drawing yourself, either rewatching the first part of the video or looking at the cheat sheet. And once you feel like you're comfortable and have memorized most of the proportions, we're going to move on to the pillow technique. So just like for the flat hand, you want to start your 3D end with the square. But this time, imagine the square is a pillow or a cushion. So it is a bit flexible and it has some sort of thickness to it. And if you're fairly new to drawing and shapes and forms don't honestly make a whole lot of sense to you, like 3-dimensional stuff is not supernatural, I have a video that you can check. I will link it in the description below and in the annotations, just so that you can get a bit more comfortable with 3-dimensional drawing. That being said, you can still follow along this tutorial and you're gonna get all the information you need for the hand. You might just need a little bit more practice to get the result that you want, which is totally fine. That's part of the process. And just like for the flat hand, you're going to split your square, now cushion pillow, situation in 4 sections, so something like this. And just to make it easier to draw the fingers, you might want to pretend that your pillow is actually transparent and so that you see the other faces and edges. I personally like to draw those with dashed lines so that way it is not as intense, and you can just continue your plus line on the top face and then just divide the top face again in a total of 4 for the fingers. Speaking of the fingers, for the 3D hand, I find it's really helpful to start with the top edge, so the part of the finger that would be on the back of the hand, which is going to be these little intersections right here. And I like to just draw lines that come out and kind of follow the same direction as the palm to get started, and then we're going to bend them later, don't worry, but it's just easier for the proportions. So go ahead and measure your palm and make sure that your middle finger is roughly the same length as the palm, and then you can divide your middle finger in 3. So that way you can mark the top of your pinky as well as the top of your index finger and the ring finger. But now let's say we want to bend the finger kind of like this. Well, first of all, make sure that you mark all your joints, so splitting the fingers in 3 sections. And then all you have to do is take a section and bend it. So changing the angle, making sure that it is, the same length, bended or not bended. And seriously, that's all there is to it, changing the position of the fingers. It's not complicated. And feel free to look at your hand just to see how things usually bend when the hand is either like in a natural position or in more of a like holding something. You always have references with you. That is the best thing ever. When you're drawing hands, you can always just look at yours and see what's going on. So you can repeat the same step and bend the other fingers slightly just to make your hand a little bit more natural, and it's always exactly the same thing. So you take your finger line, you split it in 3, and then you just rotate the little sections so that your finger is bent. And once you have basically the outlines for the top of the finger, you can just connect them with the front of the palm. And look closely here. When you're going to connect your fingers, you're not going to connect them with a point that is the direct opposite on the front line is actually going to be slightly in diagonal. So just like this. And then all you have to do is connect your fingers. So make sure that the top of the finger is slightly curved and then ends up in almost a 90-degree angle where you would have the nail. And as you can see, at this point in the process, you're getting really thick, chubby fingers, which is fine. But don't worry about it, we're going to make them thinner and a bit more realistic once we clean out the line. But for now, it's just a very quick and efficient way of sketching out the fingers. So as you can see, we're pretty much already done with the hand, we just need to add the thumb. So for the thumb, you can simply kind of sketch some sort of a curve like this, or just go ahead with an oval. That might be easier. And again, just like for the flat hand, you're going to complete by drawing the actual top of the thumb. So it's not complicated. Honestly, the thumb should not be that big of a deal. It's fairly simple, unless your hand is gripping something, then you need to kind of take care of it a little bit more. Otherwise, it's just usually hang out there. And you can finish by drawing your triangle, which is going to help you connect your hand with the rest of your arm. So basically the triangle acts a little bit like the wrist. And just like for the flat hand, let's quickly clean up the sketch. So think of your fingers as pillows as well. And what I mean by that is, as you can see here, whenever they're bent, they're kind of bulging out a little bit. So instead of being a straight line, there's pretty much just like little curves that connect all the joints together. Don't overdo it though, otherwise it's going to look really, really strange. But if you just draw a straight line, it is also going to look strange. So what I like to do, as you can see here, is just starting by drawing the inside of the fingers, so these little bumpy little lines. And I just draw them right up to the point where they start curving a lot and then transforming into the nail. So just really the front part of the finger and then the finger pad. And make sure as well that you adjust the thickness of the base of the finger on this step. So depending on the type of character that you're drawing, if it's a male or a female, it's probably going to have very different thickness there. Like if you look at my hands, for example, my fingers are really, really, really thin. So that's a way, honestly, that you have to kind of tweak the character. You can give a lot of personality to your character through the hands, so the base of the finger is one of those things that you can use. And once you have the front of the fingers, you can go ahead and draw kind of the top, the back, and then just pretty much move on to outlining everything that we've drawn so far. And guys, it is time for the secret password. So if you've watched this far in the video, please go ahead and comment fingers. I know it might sound crazy, but we've been doing this for a few weeks now, and it's just really great because it gives me a lot of insight into how to edit and pace my videos better, which helps me create better tutorials for you guys. And it's also super cool because you guys know me, but I don't know you. So whenever you leave a comment, I get to see either your name, a username, sometimes even your face, and it's just really great to see the wonderful drawing community that we're building here on this channel. So go ahead and comment fingers and we'll keep going. So once again, make sure you take the time to practice what you've learned in this step, and then we're going to move on to adding even more movement in the hand. So the great thing about the pillow technique is that you can draw hands in any position and in any angles using the exact same ideas. So always starting with drawing your palm, so just your square, and then making it thicker like a little cushion. That being said, it's not because it's the same technique that it is easy. If you're new to drawing things in 3D and if you're new to drawing the human body, it is going to require practice, but that's fine. Just make sure that you memorize the basic tricks and then go ahead and practice. So once you have your pillow, again, you're just drawing your plus sign and then making the pillow transparent by drawing the little guides in the back as well. And one really great thing with drawing is the more you draw, the easier it becomes, and also the less guides you have to draw. So right now it might seem a little bit intense drawing all of these little guides and measurements for just a hand, especially when you have 2 to draw per character. But the more hands you draw, the less you're gonna have to actually draw the guides and divide everything and kind of draw the plus sign, draw the finger lines, divide them in 3 and blah blah. Your brain is just going to see the guides and you're not gonna have to draw them, it's just gonna be there in your head. But when you're getting started, they are really helpful because they're always going to be the same no matter what you're doing. So you can see here, I'm just drawing the back line of the fingers, dividing them in 3 so that I can then move them around and fold them. And I know I've said this already, but don't be afraid to use references. This is really important, especially when you're getting started. So either look at pictures or look at your own hands and just kind of see how things bend and angles that stuff ends up in. So I was looking at my own left hand off screen here and just kind of quickly bending the fingers by using the exact same technique as before, so just separating them in 3 sections and then moving the sections around. If your hand is in a really strange angle, you're probably going to have to adjust the length of the different sections because of perspective. So for example, if you're looking at a hand as seen like right in front, so if you have like the fingers pointing at you, basically the fingers are, it looks like they have no length. But that's really more advanced, and that's not necessarily about hands, that's just about perspective in general. So if you're not familiar with perspective, that is fine, that's another thing to learn. For now, just focus again on the basic proportions and you're going to be okay. And you're going to notice here for the thumb, since we're actually seeing the bottom of the thumb this time, I'm actually just drawing an oval because we don't have the 90-degree angle from the nail. And for the wrist section, you can just draw, again, your triangle. It's probably going to be a pyramid this time, but honestly, if you just draw a triangle, you're going to be fine as well. And cleaning up the sketch is exactly like it was for the other sections. So you just want to kind of find your lines. When you're sketching, I highly recommend you just go over and draw as many lines as you need until you have a general feel of what the shape is going to be. And when you clean up your sketch, you just pick the line that you like. And you can also just kind of improvise and pick a new line, as you can see I'm quite often doing. So the sketch should just be the base structure. It should be like the scaffolding. And then when you're actually cleaning up your sketch, either by drawing some line art or adding some colors, this is when you try to make it pretty. So the sketch really just kind of is the base. Don't worry about it. It is normal if it's messy. It's even better if it's messy. And when you're cleaning out your sketch, it can be a little bit daunting at first when you're looking at all the lines. I personally like to just start with a finger that is not necessarily the first one in the sense that like it's in front of all the other fingers, but one that is not totally hidden, but also ones that is not totally bent and weird. So you want to find one finger that you're confident you're able to draw, and then you're going to have a stronger base to get started with. And here I like alternating between, drawing one finger, just the front part, then maybe drawing the front part of another finger, then completing these two fingers by drawing the back part. You can kind of go back and forth with front and back just to kind of build your hand in a structure and in an order that makes sense to you depending on the folds. So the rules are meant to be broken. You don't always have to start with the pads of the fingers or something like that. You can just start with what seems the easiest in this case and just go from there. And make sure that you look at a reference again, because when the hand is bent, there are going to be weird folds and creases appearing, mostly in the palms, but also in the fingers. And that's kind of one of the main differences you're going to get between a really stiff hand and a hand that looks like actually has movement in it is, are you drawing the folds right? So fold your hand, look at the creases, look at the folds, and draw them on your sketch. So it's not super complicated, it's just you need to look at ideas of how to do it, and at one point it's going to become second nature. But always remember it's a pillow, so it's going to bend in some ways, but also not completely fully bend like if it was a blanket or something super malleable like this. And if your fingers are bent in some certain positions, or depending on the angle of the hand, you might need to draw the nails, which is really quite simple. If you're seeing them from the front, you're just drawing a little curve line like this and then connect them with the bottom. So again, make sure you look at your nails just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like. But as long as you get some curve in there, it should look okay. Make sure that it is not just a straight line, because nails are not fully straight, at least not on the bottom and the top. The sides are fairly straight, but yeah, make sure that you add some curves in the nails and you should be good to go, honestly. And if you want to learn how to draw a head and a face using the same simple shape breakdown technique, I highly recommend that you watch this video. So just click on the link right here and I'll meet you there.